The chamber fell silent as Admiral Kale Richter rose, his black uniform stark against the pale marble of the Galactic Council floor. He tossed a blood-stained Terran flag at the foot of High Consul Zeltharin's throne. 200 dead at New Carthage. Civilians. Children. His voice, like steel scraping bone, echoed through the hall. And you dare call this peace? Zeltharin didn't flinch. Order has a price, Admiral. Your species forgets its place. Kale's eyes narrowed. Our place? He stepped forward, drawing a small, blinking device from his belt. The lights in the hall flickered as the Council's security systems crashed. Earth no longer serves. Earth no longer kneels. The holographic insignia of the Terran Interstellar Fleet pulse read across every display. Kale raised his voice for the galaxy to hear. Humanity withdraws. And with that, he turned his back, on the Council, on diplomacy, and on peace. The silence in the Council Hall wasn't peaceful. It was the sharp, electric stillness that hung right before a storm. Admiral Kale Richter stood at the center, a tall figure in black, his face carved from stone. Before him, seated on golden thrones, were the 23 members of the Galactic Council, alien leaders, diplomats, deceivers. Above them, on a raised dais, loomed High Consul Zeltharin, his four-fingered hands folded neatly, eyes like twin shards of obsidian. Kale didn't speak immediately. He reached into a satchel at his side and withdrew a folded cloth, dark red with Terran insignia. Without a word, he tossed it at Zeltharin's feet. It landed heavily, the sound muffled, the blood still wet. New Carthage, Kale said, his voice cold. 200 civilians. Dead. A ripple of murmurs swept through the hall. Zeltharin remained still, gaze fixed on the flag. You were warned, Admiral, the consul replied smoothly. Your colonies encroach on neutral zones. The Council's patience has limits. Kale took a step forward. This wasn't a border dispute. This was a slaughter. Armed ships, Council-tagged weapons. You can't spin this. A feline alien diplomat leaned forward, claws tapping on the desk. The evidence is circumstantial. Perhaps your own people provoked. Kale cut him off. Provoked? You sent mercenaries. You sent killers. The tension cracked like a wire pulled too tight. Kale scanned the room. Faces turned away. Guilt or fear. It didn't matter anymore. I've sat here for years, he said, voice rising just enough. Listen to your excuses, your laws. We bled for your wars, guarded your space lanes, built your peace. And what did we get? Chains. Zeltharin stood now, his tall form casting a long shadow. Order, Admiral. Civilization. Kale laughed, short and bitter. Order? Civilization? You call this civilized? He pointed to the flag. No. This is domination. And Earth will kneel no longer. The room erupted. Shouts, accusations, demands. Kale ignored them all. He touched a device on his wrist. All around the hall, the lights dimmed, and the Terran Interstellar Fleet insignia flared across every screen, red, stark, unyielding. Effective immediately, Kale declared, his voice carried by the Council's own systems, broadcast galaxy-wide. The Terran Union withdraws from the Galactic Council. We renounce your treaties, your laws, your decrees. Humanity will stand alone. The uproar swelled. Zeltharin's eyes narrowed. You'll bring war to your people. You already did. Kale turned and walked out. Not hurried. Not hesitant. With every step, he felt the weight of the past fall away. Behind him, the Council descended into chaos. The command deck of the TFS Vengeance hummed with restrained energy. As Kale entered, officers snapped to attention. He gave a curt nod and moved to the central console. Status? He asked. Fleets at readiness. Colonies have received the message. No movement from Council fleets yet, Captain Reyna Dax reported. They will move, Kale said. They can't afford to let us go. Dax hesitated. There's unrest. Some colonies, some civilians, they're afraid. They think we've gone too far. Kale didn't flinch. We didn't start this. No, sir, she agreed. But they'll finish it if we're not ready. Kale looked out the viewport. Earth, far below, glowed with lights, unaware of the storm about to break. I want recon ships on all known Council fleet movements. Any ship crosses into Terran space, we engage. Reyna nodded. And the diplomats? Recall them. They have no more use. A brief silence stretched between them. We won't have many allies, sir. Kale turned to her, eyes hard. We don't need many. Just the right ones. Later, alone in his quarters, Kale allowed the exhaustion to surface. He sat at his desk, the blood-stained flag laid out before him. His fingers traced the worn edges. He remembered New Carthage, not as it was now, a cratered graveyard, but as it had been. Green fields. Children laughing. His niece had lived there. He closed his eyes, the weight pressing on his chest. He'd made his choice. The council had forced his hand, but the path ahead was his alone to walk. A soft chime broke the silence. Reyna's voice came through the comms. Sir, priority message. The council has declared us a rogue state. Kale opened his eyes. Expected. There's more. They've called for a blockade. Their fleets are moving. Kale stood, smoothing the flag. Order the fleet to full combat readiness, he said. If they want a blockade, we'll give them a war. He paused, then added, prepare a broadcast. The galaxy needs to know where we stand. An hour later, the face of Admiral K.O. Richter filled screens from core worlds to outer colonies. To all who hear this, Earth is free. We owe no allegiance to tyrants who hide behind words while wielding knives. The Council calls us rebels. Let them. We will not bow. We will not break. We are Terrans. He leaned forward, voice dropping just enough to carry the weight of a promise. To those who stand with us, stand proud. To those who stand against us, pray we show mercy. The transmission cut. Across the galaxy, a line had been drawn. And Kale knew, there was no turning back. The stars above Alpha Centauri glinted coldly, distant and indifferent. Below them, on the colony world of New Thessalon, fires burned. Power grids had gone dark 3 days ago. Water systems failed the next. The people were scared, confused, left to wonder if Earth had abandoned them, or if something worse was coming. In the command center, Captain Reyna Dax surveyed the chaos unfolding across the colony from a flickering holomap. Entire sectors pulsed red, infrastructure crumbling from what appeared to be a coordinated attack, but there were no enemy ships in orbit. No armies in sight. Third sabotage report today, her lieutenant said, handing her a data pad. It's inside, ma'am. It has to be. Reyna didn't respond immediately. Her mind was already working, scanning the data, piecing together something darker than simple unrest. She tapped her comm. Admiral Richter, this is Dax. New Thessalon's under siege, but not from the outside. Someone's pulling strings. Aboard TFS Vengeance, Kale listened in silence as Reyna's report played. The colony wasn't the only one. Similar incidents echoed across Terran space, communications disrupted, logistics convoys vanishing, supply depots erupting in unexplained explosions. Council's working fast, Kale muttered. Cowards won't face us in open battle, so they rot us from the inside. His intelligence chief, Commander Ellis, stepped forward. We've intercepted low-frequency bursts, encrypted Council grade. It's coordinated. They've embedded agents across our colonies. Kale's jaw tightened. Kill teams? Ellis hesitated. Already in motion. But we need confirmation before we move on the main targets. Kale stood, eyes cold. Get it. I'm done waiting. On New Thessalon, Reyna walked through what remained of the colony's power relay station. Twisted metal. The acrid stink of burned circuits. A technician lay dead, his throat slit. No sign of the killer. Council wants us on our knees, she growled. A voice crackled through her earpiece. Captain, we've got something. Warehouse district. Movement. On my way. She moved fast, boots crunching over broken glass. When she arrived, her team was already in position, rifles aimed at a crumbling storage facility. Inside, one of them said, nodding. Scans show at least 4. Reyna didn't hesitate. She kicked the door open, weapon raised. Inside, shadows moved, too fast. Shots rang out. 2 figures went down, one gasping, clutching a wound. Reyna advanced, her pulse steady. Another figure lunged, she fired, and he crumpled. Only one remained, trying to flee through a side exit. Reyna caught him with a tackle, slamming him to the ground. Talk! She snapped, pressing a knife to his throat. He hissed something in a guttural alien tongue. She pressed harder. Names. Locations. They're everywhere. He spat, defiant. You're already dead. She drove the blade in, clean, precise. No time for games. Hours later, Reyna stood in the hollow room of TFS Vengeance, the scene replaying in her mind as she debriefed Kale. They had council credentials. This wasn't rogue. Kale nodded. I want a list. Every suspected operative. Every weak link. We pull them out, publicly. Reyna raised an eyebrow. You want to make a show of it? Kale's voice was iron. Fear works both ways. The next day, across Terran space, a wave of arrests rocked the colonies. Council agents were dragged from homes, businesses, even high offices. Their confessions broadcast live. The message was clear: Earth knew, and Earth struck back. But Kale wasn't finished. In the dark void beyond Council Outpost 17, 3 Terran strike ships hung motionless, cloaked. The outpost had been marked, confirmed as a hub for espionage. Kale watched from the command deck, arms crossed, as his fleet moved into position. Target acquired, Ellis reported. Kale gave the order. No survivors. A barrage of fire tore through the outpost, reducing it to glowing debris. No warning, no negotiation. Send footage to every council world, Kale said. Let them see. Back on Zephyrian Prime, Zeltharin seethed. Reports flooded in, human retaliation swift, brutal, without hesitation. Council members argued among themselves. Some demanded escalation, others urged caution. They're animals, Zeltharin said, voice sharp. They only understand force. A younger delegate, from the Narthi species, spoke up. And yet, Consul, we bleed while they stand. Perhaps we underestimated. Silence! Zeltharin barked. They defy us, they die. In his quarters aboard Vengeance, Kale sat alone, watching the stars. The war had already begun, even if the Council refused to admit it. His calm chimed. Reyna's voice. More Council ships on the move. Blockades forming. Kale didn't look away from the viewport. Let them come. There was a pause. They'll push hard. So will we. Another pause, softer this time. Kale, if we keep escalating, there's no way back. There was never a way back. He closed the comm, standing. The stars didn't care, but he did. And he'd make sure the galaxy knew it. Kale returned to the bridge, eyes clear, resolve sharpened. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. This isn't just about defense anymore. The officers nodded, no hesitation. Kale's voice carried across the deck. We strike now. We don't wait for them to bleed us dry. We show them what Terrans do when cornered. Far away, Council fleets gathered. But Earth was ready. And Kale had no intention of stopping. The Council's grand chamber, once a symbol of unity, now buzzed with unease. Delegates from across the galaxy filled the hall with anxious whispers, their eyes darting between datapads flashing with grim reports. Kale Richter's strikes had not only crippled Council assets, but exposed the cracks within their so-called alliance. High Consul Zeltharin stood rigid at the center, his calm veneer stretched thin. We must act decisively, he said, voice measured but edged with steel. Humanity's aggression cannot go unanswered. A grizzled amphibious delegate from the Vrothian Empire rose. Your plan for retaliation has failed, Consul. Our outposts are gone. Our agents dead. Richter moves faster than we can react. Murmurs of agreement spread like wildfire. Zeltherin raised a hand, but the room was shifting. The Terrans have supporters, another delegate added. The Free Systems Coalition. They've long resisted our authority. They see an opportunity. Zeltherin's eyes darkened. The coalition is disorganized. They're scavengers. They're armed now, came the reply. The High Consul turned slowly, calculating. His grip tightened behind his back. He could see it, loyalties bending, fear rising. Kale had struck at more than their fleets. He'd struck at their belief in control. Then we will remind them why the Council exists, Zeltherin said. Blockade Earth. Starve them. And when they beg, we will decide their fate. Light years away, aboard the TFS Vengeance, Kale was already preparing for the blockade. The Council's fleets were converging, their numbers vast. But Kale knew numbers didn't win wars, resolve did. Status on the free systems? Kale asked, eyes fixed on the star map hovering above the war table. Captain Reyna Dax stood opposite him. They've agreed to meet. Tentatively. Kale nodded. Tentative doesn't win battles. They don't trust us, she said plainly. They fear trading one master for another. Kale allowed a thin smile. They'll see we're not here to rule. Or they'll stay out of it. Kale looked her in the eye. Then we fight alone. The meeting with the coalition was set at Varney's Station, a neutral ground far from Council reach. Kale arrived with a small escort, unarmed, but fully aware that trust here was as fragile as glass. He was greeted by Jorik Thal, a reptilian leader with eyes like burning coals. You're bold to come here, human, Jorik said, voice low. Some here would rather see you dead. Kale met his gaze without flinching. Let them try. Inside, the hall was filled with leaders from independent worlds, pirates, traders, minor systems, all tired of Council dominance, but wary of Earth's strength. Kale wasted no time. The Council is weak, he began. They hide behind words while they destroy what they fear. You've seen it. You've lived under it. Murmurs rose, cautious, curious. We don't want your worlds, Kale continued. We don't want your tribute. We want their power broken. Help us, and we fight as equals. Jorik stepped forward. And when the Council falls? What stops you from taking their place? Kale's voice didn't waver. I give you my word, we didn't shed blood to build a new throne. There was silence. Then, a voice from the crowd. Words are wind, Terran. Kale drew a data chip and tossed it onto the table. Council attack plans. Your worlds are on that list. You think they'll stop with Earth? Jorik picked up the chip, scanned it. His jaw tightened. Prove it, he said. Kale's reply was simple. Stand with us at Alpha Centauri. See who falls. Back on TFS Vengeance, Kale returned to find news waiting. The blockade's begun, Reyna reported. 3 sectors cut off. They're choking our colonies. Kale absorbed the information. And the coalition? They're watching. Kale leaned on the war table, voice low but firm. Then let them watch us break the Council's grip. At Council command, Zeltherin's blockade was tightening. Supplies dwindled. Colonies cried out for aid. But the Council had no intention of relenting. Desperation breeds surrender, he told his counselors. They will come to heal. But cracks continued to widen. The Narthi and Vrothians spoke in hushed tones. The fear that Kale had planted was growing, and Zeltherin felt it like a blade at his back. Prepare the fleets, he ordered. We end this at Alpha Centauri. Kale stood before his officers, the star map glowing with enemy movements. They think they can starve us out, he said. They think we'll break. They don't understand Terrans. He paused, letting the room fill with quiet determination. We've fought for every inch of our space. For every life. They'll learn we don't yield. Orders flew. Ships moved. The Terran fleet gathered, not waiting for the storm, but becoming it. Alpha Centauri was no longer a colony. It was a battleground. The blockade was a noose tightening, but Kale was already cutting through the rope. As he watched the Council fleets move, he saw opportunity. "Reyna," he said, "bring in the Shadow Fleet. Time to make our mark." The war wasn't coming. It was already here. Alpha Centauri's twin suns burned low on the horizon as the TFS Vengeance slid into position above the colony. The darkness of space was deceptive. Hidden in its vastness, fleets moved like predators. Kale stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the incoming Council ships, a storm of steel and malice. "Status?" Kale's voice was calm. Reyna didn't look up from her console. "Council fleet, 30 strong. 2 dreadnoughts. They're forming a wedge formation, heading straight for the colony." Kale nodded. "Deploy the Shadow Fleet. Let's see if they notice." In the cold black behind the Vengeance, cloaked Terran ships came alive, invisible to most sensors. The Shadow Fleet, Kale's hidden trump card, slid into the enemy's flank, silent and unseen. "They won't," Kale murmured. "They never look at what they don't fear." The Council fleet moved with precision, heavy cruisers pushing forward, smaller ships darting along the edges. On the bridge of the Council flagship, Zeltharin watched the Terran defenses with disdain. "They're few," his captain reported. "Desperate," Zeltharin replied. "And desperate men make mistakes." Kale watched the Council's advance like a chess master eyeing a reckless opponent. "They expect us to hold the line," he said. "We won't." He tapped a control on the console. "Order the line to fall back. Make them think we're breaking." The Terran front wavered, a carefully orchestrated retreat. Council forces surged forward, smelling blood. They moved fast, tightening the noose. "Shadow Fleet in position," Reyna reported. Kale didn't hesitate. "Unleash them." From the dark, the Shadow Fleet struck. Torpedoes, silent and deadly, ripped through the Council's rear. Explosions bloomed like fire flowers in space. Confusion spread. Council ships spun, searching for enemies they couldn't see. "Rear flank compromised!" Council officers screamed. Zeltharin's face twisted. "Where? How?" Kale stepped forward on his bridge. "Now. Hit them hard." The TFS Vengeance surged forward, leading the counterattack. Terran ships, sleek and vicious, tore into the confused Council lines. Beam weapons lanced through hulls, turning metal into ash. "Target their dreadnoughts," Kale ordered. "Cripple their pride." Reyna's hands moved swiftly. Locked. The Vengeance's main guns fired, a pulse of energy slamming into the nearest dreadnought. The Council ship reeled, engines sputtering, fire spilling into the void. Aboard the Council flagship, panic reigned. "They're behind us!" "Shields failing!" Zeltharin clenched his fists. "Hold the line! Reinforce the flank!" But it was too late. The Council formation shattered, ships scattering, trying to regroup, but the Terran fleet was relentless. They pressed the advantage, cutting off retreat paths, isolating targets. "Enemy flagship in range," Reyna said. Kale's eyes narrowed. "End it." The Vengeance's guns roared again. The Council flagship shuddered under the assault. One more volley and it was done, a dying star falling silent, swallowed by the void. Across the battlefield, Council ships blinked out, one by one. Some tried to flee. Some stood and died. In less than an hour, what had been a mighty fleet was debris, floating wreckage, silent and cold. Kale stood amidst the glow of the aftermath, his face impassive. "Status?" Reyna exhaled. "Alpha Centauri secure. Council fleet destroyed." Kale nodded once. "Send the word. Let every world know, we do not bow." In the days that followed, footage of the battle spread like wildfire. Kale's speech, broadcast over the wreckage, echoed in every system. "This is what defiance looks like. This is what freedom costs. We will not kneel. We will not fade. We are Terrans, and we are here to stay." Far from the battlefield, on Zephyrian Prime, the Council reeled. Delegates argued. Blame spread like disease. "They've crippled us," one spat. Our fleets, our control, gone. Zeltharin sat in silence, his gaze distant. They made us weak, another said. Now, even the free systems turn away. Kale watched it all unfold from the TFS vengeance, the galaxy reshaping itself. The council fractured. The blockade lifted. Earth stood alone, and unbroken. But Kale knew peace wasn't won in one battle. He turned to Reyna. Prepare the fleet. This is just the beginning. Zephyrian Prime hung in space like a monument to arrogance. A city world of glass and steel, built to symbolize unity, now cracked from within. Council ships still orbited, but fewer than before. Delegates whispered in corridors once loud with authority. The silence felt heavier than the vacuum outside. High Consul Zeltharin stood at the window of his private chamber, watching the stars. His reflection stared back at him, drawn and sharp. The battle at Alpha Centauri had been more than a loss. It was a humiliation. Worse, it inspired fear. Fear he could not control. A chime broke the stillness. Enter. A junior aide stepped inside, face pale. Consul, the Narthi delegation has withdrawn. They've issued a formal denouncement. Zeltharin didn't turn. And the Vrothians? Still undecided. Bribe them. Threaten them. I don't care how. Yes, Consul. As the aide left, Zeltharin turned from the stars. His empire, crafted through centuries of manipulation, was crumbling. And at the center of it stood one man, Kale Richter. A man he had dismissed, underestimated. Not again. On board the TFS Vengeance, Kale stood before a galactic map. Red markers showed Council holdouts. Yellow for those wavering. And blue for Earth, for those now free from Council chains. Zephyrian won't fall with one strike, Reyna said, her voice low. Kale nodded. Then we strike twice. He turned to Commander Ellis. Status of the Council's moon assault plan? Confirmed. They plan to destroy Luna to break morale. Kale's jaw tightened. We broadcast that. Every system, every species. Ellis hesitated. It'll shatter what's left of their legitimacy. That's the point. Within hours, every screen, every channel across the galaxy lit up with images. Council communiques detailing the planned annihilation of Earth's moon. Maps, coordinates, orders signed by Zeltharin himself. Shock rippled through the systems. Protests erupted on Council worlds. Delegates demanded answers. Some fled. Others resigned. On Zephyrian, the halls of power were filled with chaos. Kale didn't wait. He gathered his fleet, not to destroy Zephyrian, but to break its grip. Disable its weapons, dismantle its voice. Hit the defense grid. Silence their broadcasts. No deaths unless forced, Kale ordered. As the Terran fleet approached, Council forces scrambled. Fighters launched, but without coordination. The dreadnoughts they relied on were gone. The Council's once mighty fleets had been reduced to scattered resistance. Kale watched from the bridge. Begin the operation. Terran ships moved with precision. EMP blasts crippled communications. Pulse cannons took out power nodes. One by one, Zephyrian's defenses fell, not in fire, but in silence. Reyna reported. Resistance minimal. No civilian casualties. Kale nodded. Good. Move to Phase 2. Inside the council chambers, Zeltharin stood before the remaining delegates. You see? This is what happens when we hesitate. They come for us, they destroy everything we've built. But no one responded. Screens flickered. Communications dropped. Outside, Terran ships hovered, unchallenged. One delegate stood. It's over. Zeltharin's voice rose. We are the Council. No, came the quiet reply. We were. On the steps of Zephyrian's central spire, Kale stood, flanked by Terran guards. The galaxy watched. The Council is finished, he said, voice steady. Their time of rule is done. Earth will not take their place. We offer something else, choice. He paused, letting the words settle. Join us, or stand alone. But never again will we bow. In the days that followed, the Council dissolved. Worlds declared independence. The Terran Union was formed, not as rulers, but as defenders. Alliances grew, built not on fear, but strength. Kale sat in his quarters, watching the stars. Reyna entered, silent. You did it, she said. Kale shook his head. We did part of it. She sat across from him. What now? Kale looked out, beyond the stars. Now we keep our promise. We don't become them. Far away, in the shadows, Zeltherin fled, his ship cloaked. He watched the fall, and he waited. This isn't the end, he whispered. Not yet.